We decided to visit Kenya as part of an organized birdwatching tour and chose Birdfinders, a UK-based company. We had previously been to the Gambia and Egypt. It was time to venture further. The Birdfinders tour seemed to cover a nice selection of parks and habitats, starting at an overnight hotel in Nairobi. Early morning, a look in the grounds after breakfast provided our first Kenyan birds. The yellow-billed kite is still called black kite on eBird. A rather distant bird was identified as red-eyed dove, while a somewhat closer one was baglefect weaver. On the surrounding rooftops we could see speckled pigeons. It was quite hard to tear ourselves away to climb into the 2 safari vans waiting for us in the car park. We headed out of Nairobi, skirting the Nairobi National Park. We were heading for our first stop, a small wetland called Manguo Swamp. Manguo means hippopotamus in a local language, although there are no hippos there now. Instead, there were numbers of waterfowl, such as white-faced and fulvous whistling ducks, yellow-billed ducks, red-knobbed coots, and glossy and sacred ibis. The reeds held red-billed quailea and pin-tailed whydah. It was a great spot. We found more baglefect weavers and our first blacksmith lapwing. Rather less exotic was a western yellow wagtail, a migrant which had come south for the winter. We were to spend an hour or so on the edge of this marsh. The vegetation on the roadside was alive with little birds, all worth a closer look. Common waxbills were to prove less than common on our tour. We were to see them on only 3 other occasions, and never as well as these views. Rather more common were the lovely speckled mousebirds. We'd see them on almost every day. They get their name from their long tails and their habit of clambering through the branches of bushes and trees. This Cape Robin chat was a great find. A male African stonechat also entertained us. We'd see a female a little later in the morning. Down in some smaller pools nearer the road we found a wood sandpiper, a winter migrant, and our first 3-banded plover. The reeds around these pools provided brief views of lesser swamp warbler and highland rush warbler. Unfortunately, we did not get photos of those. These cheerful little birds are hunter cisticolas, nearly always found in pairs or small groups, and known to sing in duets, just like these were doing. It wasn't until we got home that we noticed the tiny colourful beetle, a Picasso bug, tucked in the leaves just below the upper bird. A female cardinal woodpecker provided very good views and photo opportunities. A variable sunbird was feeding busily in a bed of wildflowers. This bird derives the variable part of its name from the different belly colors it can spot in different places, such as white, orange, red or, as here, yellow. Eventually dragging ourselves reluctantly away, we headed on, past the Great Rift Valley viewpoint and on to Gatamaiyu Forest. A forest campsite would provide a spot to park and have lunch, after a wander up a small track. We would see birds here that we would not come across again. Eastern double-collared sunbirds are separated from northern by the pale rather than dark belly color. These were the first birds we saw as we exited the vans in the campsite. The trees here were to prove good for sunbirds. Mountain oriole is also known as black-tailed oriole. We were going to get used to species with more than one common name over the course of this tour. And, almost straight away, here was another two-name species. The spectacular black and white colobus is also known as the mantled garazer. Our first sighting of what was to become our most regularly seen bee-eater species, the lovely cinnamon-chested bee-eater. Spectacled weavers were busy nest building. Evergreen forest warbler proved very easy to hear but not at all easy to see. This was our only chestnut-throated opalis. We were lucky that it posed momentarily before flying off. We were also lucky that a couple of crowned hornbills flew into some of the larger trees and halted briefly. Again, this would be our only sighting of the trip. Kikuyu mountain greenbulls were to be very skulking and hard to photograph. We took our packed lunches in some comfort in the campground. A white-eyed slaty flycatcher kept us entertained while we ate. Another skulking greenbull, this time yellow-whiskered greenbull, was rather outshone by a showy green-headed sunbird in the trees at the campground. We did think that the head was more blue than green though. It definitely looked more like blue to us. We were off again, on to our third site of the day, the Kinangop Plateau. This site is famous for the endemic Sharp's longclaw, and we were hoping to find them here. First though, a brimstone canary. We started to find birds as soon as we alighted from the vans. Northern fiscal, a shrike species, was first. Hadada ibis foraged in the soft earth, looking for insects, millipedes, and earthworms. The first part of the site was a large pool. We would have to skirt round this to reach the plateau proper. That is, if we could tear ourselves away from the birds. Great egrets were maybe not so much of a distraction, but our first Cape wagtails, foraging along a muddy edge, definitely were. Western cattle egrets and red-knobbed coots were around the pool. Egyptian geese and yellow-billed storks were feeding. It was interesting to watch the stork stirring up prey items by paddling its feet in the water. A fine auger buzzard flew low over the wetland. A juvenile black-crowned night heron was on the edge of the water. Another Cape Robin chat was very welcome. Eventually we made it to the main plateau, a wide expanse of tufty grassland and prime habitat for the sharp's long claw. The technique was to walk in a broad line across the grass and wait until the birds broke cover. They did, but the brief flights were followed by more skulking, so no photos, at least not from here. Instead we found our first crowned lapwings of the trip, and they were much more obliging with views. Back at the edge of the big pond, a stately grey heron stood in the water, and a surprise African snipe was just visible on the far bank. Even better, if less rare, a pair of grey-crowned cranes flew in. These were our first of the trip and are always worth a look. Just fabulous birds. Heading back to the vans, we enjoyed closer looks at yellow-billed ducks. It was clearly the time for yellow-billed species, as we also got another yellow-billed stork and our first yellow-billed egrets. These latter birds used to be called intermediate egrets but have recently been split. Perched on the boundary fence in the late afternoon sun was our first African dusky flycatcher. It shared the fence with streaky seed-eaters. And a couple of Levalent cisticolas showed well in the grasses at the water's edge. We could see the shadows lengthening. It had been a pretty full day and we'd packed a lot in. We'd seen 101 species of bird and 5 mammals. Not a bad start. And so on to our overnight accommodation at the Lake Naivasha Country Club. Tropical house geckos shared our bathroom and hippopotamuses grazed on the lawns. It was great. Tomorrow we'd be taking a boat ride on the lake, followed by a drive to the famous Masai Mara Reserve. It had been a great start to the trip and things could only get better. For more information, see our 3-volume travelogue, in ebook and paperback formats, available from Amazon. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel. Don't miss the other videos in our Kenyan birding safari series.